Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of A Lethal Weapon. So quite a few things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, I love the two different sides of this episode that ultimately came together. Because obviously on one side you have this whole thing, Leo's got his case, and you also have Trish like working with Leo, just because for her it's like it is, she even admits it later on, but it is a situation of like her, where she is kind of being on her own isn't really going where she wants it to career wise, so she ends up helping Leo with his case because he's handling like this big case and everything, and Trish backs him up. And even love in the like when they're talking to the company that they're going up against, Gurman Driscoll, he's like, okay, you do all the talking and I'll sit here with my serious mean face. And then it's like, okay, we're going to give you $100,000. And he's like, Leo's like, we'll take it. And Trisha's like, no. And it's tearing it up. And then Leo's like, you got any tape for that? So I love Leo being the way that he is. Trish kind of sees the bigger picture in the situation when he doesn't. But this all ties into Cole and Murtaugh's case, because there's a dude from Herbal Leaf. His name is Kendall. He was killed, garden shears to the neck and stuff like that. I thought it was kind of interesting because the moment like we find out about Tom on the front with Leo and Trish, you also find out about him on the cop front too. So I thought that's kind of neat. I also love that little thing from Avery where he was talking to Harper about like, yeah, basically Meghan Markle being like, oh, she went from USA on a TV show to being married to a prince and is happily ever after, which is like, yeah, when you actually think about it, it is a very lovely story and stuff like that. So I know, but it's just funny because it's like, it is it's almost a Disney movie come to life. Not necessarily, but it's just such an interesting thing. Like she went from like actress to princess, essentially. Which I don't even know about that whole situation, whether or not she's going to still be acting or not. She might not be able to, because I think there are guidelines to the whole like being married into the royal family. I don't really know it, because it's like, to me, it's like, that's their business, not mine. It's not my marriage. More power to them. Hope they're happy. That yada 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 type of thing. So I never looked into it that much, because it's like that. Whatever the case, it's just kind of an interesting thing to think about. But nevertheless, so I thought that was kind of neat. And while this is all happening, there's also the Cole storyline, because he hooked up with Julie after he had that dream about Natalie. And I love that you could definitely tell it was a dream, just the way Andrew was having his reaction. He's like, I told you we should have gotten married in Hawaii. And then when Cole and Natalie start making out, he's like, yeah, this sucks. Just his nonchalant reaction. Plus the fact is that it worked out like that. It's like, oh, you thought you'd come here, confess your feelings to me, and I'd leave with you? And they start making it hardcore. So I thought that was kind of neat. But wakes up to him making out with Julie, and he doesn't even know her name. And he's like, no, I was going to ask you, pancakes and stuff like that. The moment she's like, oh yeah, going to a wedding, she got over her ex, I immediately was like, she's Andrew's ex, isn't she? And it's like this weird thing of like, you're showing up a wedding that she's at, where her ex is getting married to your ex. I thought that was going to be the grand twist in it, but it's like, nope, the twist is that Julie is friends with Erica, the same recent deputy DA that they've kind of been working with. I was like, that's so interesting that the moment Cole figured out, he's like, no, it could be any Erica who's a DA. It's like, oh, her mom's also a senator? Okay, and he snuck out, and he almost got away with it until Erica looked and found his wallet and everything. She's like, you got to be kidding me. And they literally broke her table and everything. I was like, oh, that was so well done. So Erica showing up being like, do you have anything to say? And just Cole couldn't say anything at first, and just the awkwardness. And even like Avery being like, whoa, okay, hearing them going back and forth, like, do I need to get HR involved? And it's like, no, nothing like that. And it's like, okay, then it's all good. And he's like, you wore a robe? It's like, yeah, well, actually her robe wore me. And Avery's like, I've worn one of those before. I have a robe exactly like that. So I thought that was kind of pretty neat. What I also liked about that whole situation is like him trying to avoid Julie too, because he tries to get out of it, but then it's like, nope. You still kind of have to go through the day, because he realizes how little he actually knows about her. The fact of the matter is he goes to try and pick up her dress for the date and stuff like that, because even Erica being like, the fact of the matter is, Julie, she's getting on a bad breakup. The fact of the matter is, she thinks that you're a reliable guy when in actuality you're a mess. And he's like, me a mess? Murtaugh, tell her about me. And he's like, I am literally not going to get in the middle of this like soap opera drama that is your life, essentially, just because it's like, it's bad luck. You know, it's just kind of like, they end up in the back of the truck, and even Erica was like, how often do situations like this happen? Because he's like, under situations like this, you have to be calm. And she's like, for you to know something like that, you've had to be in this situation multiple times. He's like, less than you think, but more than I'm willing to admit to you. I also love when he's trying to get the guy to stop, was it Chef, trying to get him to stop. He's like, keep your eyes on the road, keep your hands on the wheel, and just ends up knocking him out. It's like, hey, wake up. And it's like, oh, okay. So I love... Cole is kind of Mr. Chaos. Like, Cole seems super unlucky, whereas like you have Riggs kind of just being like Mr. Crazy. It seems like Cole is more Mr. Unlucky, essentially. It's just kind of like, once again, chaos follows him everywhere, and he just things always tend to go from bad to worse under his particular situation. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's sad that he would end up running into Natalie, and that brought up the whole conversation, because she's like, the fact of the matter is, oh, here you are picking up someone else's dress to go to a wedding that you don't know whose it is, with someone you just met. It sounds like the same old Cole, and I'm sure that cut him even deeper, because for him it's like he kept trying to prove to Natalie, like, no, I'm different, things are different now. But for her to probably hear her say that, you know, it just kind of makes her affirm in her mind, like, oh, I'm making the right choice, you know, and stuff like that, you know. It might not have gone that far, but I'm sure in Cole's own head it was kind of like that. He got drunk. It's sad, like, we never... I mean, I think it kind of worked out in the end, because, like, obviously him and Julie weren't really meant to be together or whatever. But Erica is there hearing from him, and I thought it was kind of interesting, because, like, Cole was like, after everything I've been through, all the torture and stuff like that, nothing hurts like this. But for him, it's like, because he spent most of his life avoiding heartache, you know? But because of that, he never built up any scar tissue. And I was like, that was actually so beautifully said. Just because that's the type of situation when I guess I can kind of relate with, because I haven't had that many situations of heartbreak in my life. I've been in like very few relationships in my entire life. Like I've avoided relationships as an adult. Just kind of throw it out there. I've only had relationships as a teenager. Heartbreak situations, I guess. But I doubt I've built up enough scar tissue, you know, to kind of handle like real heartbreak as an adult, you know. So it's just, I don't know, that line just really hit me, because I thought it was kind of very poetic and just kind of this beautiful, you know, metaphor. And Erica there listening to him and everything, and it's just like, I also love kind of going into the whole thing, because it kind of ties into the whole Erica and Cole back and forth, which is like, oh, they have such a good dynamic. Because the fact is, it's a little flirty, but they just like, they have their little snap back and forth. It's a whole situation where they were all still thinking it was Chef that was the one behind, you know, Kendall's murder, but the fact of the matter is, Cole was like, I don't think it was him. And she's like, oh, it's because you're over empathizing, because like you're under both, you know, kind of going through rough patches relationship wise, and you know, kind of going through the motions of things, kind of being in the situations that you are. And he was like, no, think about it, like the shears were done in such a precise movement. Someone who just found out, you know, killed the guy that was having an affair with your wife, which is kind of crazy that ended up being a part of their story, but nevertheless, he was like, well, let's use you and me example. You find out, you know, I slept with someone that you care about. And he's like, and she's like, yeah, that happened. And then it's like, okay, so what if you found out that me and Julie slept, you know, in your bed, had sex in your shower, had sex on your counters? And she's like, I'd stab you over and over and over again. And he's like, exactly. And she's like, oh, okay. So I just like how they like ended up tying together like that. But I also appreciate the fact that she was actually there for Cole when the time came, because it was like when he was kind of passed out, kind of drunk, she even took his phone so that he wouldn't call Natalie over and over again. But she didn't talk about it directly, but it almost seemed like she might have had some experience about what Cole's going through. Maybe she just felt like they haven't gotten to that point yet where she's ready to share. But it seems like relationship-wise, it seemed like she might have potentially went through something similar as Cole, that, you know, dealing with heartbreak. Because the way she answered, like, I don't know how to help you, just because it seems like she probably hasn't found the answer 100% herself, you know, but that's just maybe me reading too much into it. But I love it being like, did you and Julie have sex on his couch? And he's like, no. And she's like, okay. He sits down and he's like, maybe. And it's that whole situation. And then later on there's that whole situation of her being like because Cole's like, oh, you might want to take a uni with you. And she's like, oh, you were worried about me? He's like, no, I'm worried about Tom. And I'm worried about you. It's kind of a 50-50 thing. It's like, but more so about Tom. And Trish is leaning over to Roger and being like, what's going on here? He's like, an HR nightmare. I love that. Like I said, I just love that their dynamic is growing. I kind of, because it already seems like they might be leaning towards like, oh, potentially there being something between it. Because Natalie was talking about the fact is like, hey, you know, you won't find what we had, but maybe you'll find something similar, you know. And he's like, how do you know? Because she's like, well, I had my heart broken once too. And he's like, yeah. They kind of laugh and joke about like, oh, whoever he was, kind of a big idiot. So I'm immediately leaning towards him and Erica, which is like, that'll be a complicated thing because they work together and stuff like that potentially. But still, I think she's probably something in the right direction. But the fact of the matter is, it's kind of what Natalie had said, that it will take time. So it does seem like we won't be seeing him kind of messing up the wedding. So it is, because I was curious like how they were going to handle it. It's like, would that potentially lead to him and Natalie eventually getting back together or something like that? But it's like, especially because he pushed the whole Andrew thing to this point. So, but now, especially in talking like this, it does kind of feel like he might be on his way to potentially moving on. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting going forward to see kind of how things kind of progress in that regard. But I'm kind of talking all over the place. I do also enjoy the whole situation of like Roger and Trish arguing back and forth in front of Avery. And he's kind of caught in the middle of that whole situation. And it's kind of like, oh, this and that. And just kind of like Roger explaining things and then Trish explaining things and then kind of butting heads and like stuff like that. Because I was thinking about the fact is, I think this, well, technically they still weren't working on the same case. Because I don't think they've worked on the same cases before when her stories have come up to being something in the courtroom. I think they have, they've crossed paths courtroom wise, but there was at least one other case that was similar to this, because I think she chewed Riggs out on the stand or something like that, because Roger tried to warn Riggs about her in the courtroom and stuff like that. So this isn't the first time. Like to this degree, it was kind of interesting. Because it was kind of two separate cases that kind of came together for one. That whole reveal was actually kind of interesting because I was like, wait, so Tom is all about stopping Gurman and Driscoll. So it's like, why would you kill Kendall? But it turns out, like, the company wouldn't save his wife when she was sick or put the money for it to do that. So what he did was, to hurt their money even more, he messed with a lot of their chemicals even more. Kendall got sick, started digging into it, and found out about Tom, so Tom killed him because of that. Because this was all a long-winded aspect of revenge, because even when it was all said and done, Gurman and Driscoll still covered up and didn't announce what was happening, because it was kind of all to prove a point. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, Kendall was kind of a byproduct of his revenge, essentially. So he was a casualty in it. So it was kind of like, that kind of surprised me how that ended up circling back, especially because it's like he almost seemed like he was the victim in this situation because he was the one being tracked by a killer and all that. So, and luckily, you had Cole literally stopping Tom by driving a bike through Erica's front door and hitting him with it. Once again, I'm sitting here thinking about it. The actress who plays, I gotta look it up, because the actress who plays Erica seems so familiar in it, but I just can't place it. And it's bothering the crap out of me, because I feel like I recognize her from something. I also love that you had Roger and Trish having like that little like back and forth about the stakeout, because he sees her and he calls her and she looks through her binoculars and sees him. He's got some supplies and stuff, but then she took some of his supplies, and it's like, oh, let's do it together. They apologize and make up, about to kind of get freaky with it. Until Tom showed up, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But then later on, they kind of have like this whole like date night / stakeout type of thing going on, because it's like, ooh, I think that kind of sparked it in and be like, ooh, this is kind of a sexy situation. Let's kind of make this a kind of a regular thing. So I thought that's kind of neat. And you have Cole babysitting, and that whole, like, Harper, like, I don't know what, like, especially in this episode, like, she reminds me of my youngest niece. They kind of like favor each other a little bit. Seeing her in this episode made me kind of go, oh, it's kind of like her cute and adorableness, and like some of her responses in the episode, I'm like, this is too adorable. It's like, dude, it's moments like that. It makes you go, oh, I want to have kids, but then you go, all right, I see my older nieces and my nephew, and you're kind of like, nah, no kids. But then just those adorable moments and those cool, funny moments with just all of them. And you go, especially the youngest and most adorable one. So it's that type of situation. So it just brought that back in my head. I just couldn't help but think that every time I saw Harper in this episode. But I like that Cole is literally babysitting at the end of the episode and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of pretty nice. I also love that Leo didn't really get much from this whole situation. I mean, for him, it's like they didn't get the money because their client ended up giving all the charity, and the payment was waived by Leo. But the fact of the matter is, he was like, if Trish had told him ahead of time about this whole thing going with a charity situation, they kind of give you a little bit of kind of kickback if you point the money towards their charity or something like that, because Leo's like, I know a couple places that would have done that if you just let me know ahead of time. But Leo still asking Trish to work with him, but she has a reluctancy. I think eventually it's going to happen whether she really wants it to or not, just because she might not have much of a choice in the matter. So, but I don't know. We'll kind of have to wait and see where their paths kind of go going forward. So I'm always happy when we get a episode of Leo in it. So, but these are some very interesting developments all around. Like I said, I'm really pushing and hoping for the whole Erica and Cole situation, because that seems like where that's potentially going. But like I said, I like their dynamic already, how they first met with that whole like him hitting her car situation, which is funny just because dream-wise he ended up hitting Natalie's car when he was trying to stop it, the car that her and Andrew were going to leave in after the wedding. So it just makes me think symbolically that just might mean something there. Maybe not. Maybe that's just me thinking about it too much, overthinking things. Maybe there was no deeper meaning behind it, but nevertheless, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store. If I remember, the number I saw was like there is only 13 episodes this season. I think this was episode 10, so only 3 episodes left this season. So I'm very interested to see what the rest of the season has in store for us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.